Hey dudes, it is Sky here, discussing with you Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, starring Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter, George Carlin, and Joss Ackland, and directed by Peter Hewitt. Be excellent to one another and party on, dudes!
And I have seen the movie before. Well, no, this is my first two viewings. I take that back. It's my first two viewings, and what do I think of it? Well, let's get into it. In Sandemus 2691 AD, an evil genius named Dr. Denomalus, well, not a doctor per se, played by Joss Ackland, creates an evil version of Bill and Ted, disrupting the class Rufus, returned by George Carlin, to take over the real world of Bill S. Preston, returned by Alex Winter, and Ted Theodore Logan, returned by Keanu Reeves, along with their girlfriends slash bandmates, as they get into the Battle of the Bands, and Missy, who was in the last movie, married from Bill's father to Ted's father, who still wants to put Ted in the military, which Ted doesn't want, as Bill and Ted propose to their girlfriends slash bandmates, which is kind of funny, but not quite as funny as the original movie from last week. Evil Bill and Ted arrive to today's world and almost kill a cat, but luckily they miss. They do that a lot, so please forgive them. Well, no, don't forget them. They're evil. And talk with Denomalus and find the real Bill and Ted in their apartment as they pretend to be their girlfriends and dumping them both to go to the desert. But they don't know it's evil Bill and Ted, as they take the real Bill and Ted to the desert to kill them both and drive off in a Porsche instead of their van. And the real Bill and Ted wake up in the dead world and bump into the Grim Reaper and get back to their apartment by walking there and see evil Bill and Ted breaking up with the babes. And the real Bill and Ted go to the police station where they pretend to be Ted's father and a sergeant, which is funny but not hysterical. Meanwhile, Missy is holding a voodoo class where they spy on ghosts, and their plan of resurrecting them doesn't quite work. But as a sequel, as they get to hell, this movie kind of goes down to a horror film. That's not what Bill and Ted are all about. It's about comedy at best. The Grim Reaper shows up and challenges Bill and Ted to board game after board game sessions with a deal. If the Grim Reaper wins, they stay dead. And if Bill and Ted wins, they go back to being alive as they play Battleship, to Clue, to an electronic football game, to Twister. Now, I do like the real Bill and Ted, their girlfriends, and the Grim Reaper as characters, as the Grim Reaper shows the dead Bill and Ted the way out of death, going to heaven, and find a way to get in successfully to talk with God about how great he is, and tells them they want to find someone that could get them back alive. And they go to the station, and they get to the station only to find two creatures who are great scientists that'll help them out, and they're alive back on Earth with the Grim Reaper, with the two scientist creatures. And I like those characters for how funny they are, but there are a bit of Jar Jar Binks annoying. The babes realize the evil Bill and Ted are robots, while the real Bill and Ted go shopping for some stuff, and the two station scientist creatures transform into a giant creature to help the real Bill and Ted get things back to normal with their world, the babes, and the future. They get to the Battle of the Bands and almost start playing the guitars without the girls until the real Bill and Ted stop them with their robot built by the station creatures, and they save the babes and rip off the heads of the evil Bill and Ted, and the phone booth arrives, but it's Denomalus, who almost kills Bill and Ted until they turn back after the Battle of the Bands to defeat Denomalus. And after he's defeated, and Rufus was disguised as Pam Grier, and they win the Battle of the Bands, and as a climax, it was a good time. I mean, I'll say that. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 6.8 out of 10. This is good, but not as funny nor as good as last week's film. But it is a good time. When it turns into a horror movie, I thought this isn't the movie I remembered from last week. The two station creatures were a little annoying, and I had a good time with the characters, and I wonder if the new movie will make me have fun around the characters as much as as they're much older now, that in this movie. So I would like to thank you guys for joining me, and I will be back next week with Bill and Ted Face the Music.